brought to you by a true American treasure, a true shaman of the undergarments of the American night, David Amram.
Thank you, Oliver, for putting this on and for that beautiful introduction. Just like to say what a joy it is to see people come out and celebrate one of our great, really true great American originals. Back in 1969, when Jack Kerouac passed away, he at that time was held in so much of a low esteem by the Eastern Seaboard establishment literati, who still were suffering from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, terminal low self-esteem, feeling anything that was generically American must by definition be a total drag. Barney Russell had to get a musician, composer, to write his obit. I was honored to be chosen because I was Jack's accompanist for 12 years. But in the obituary that I wrote in 1969, I mentioned at the very end that he would be appreciated someday, and two other great people. This was 39 years ago, I guess, right? 38 years ago, 1969. Also, that a comedian named Lenny Bruce and someone named Lord Buckley would also have their day. Of course, Jack now is all over the world, and Lord Buckley is, like Lenny Bruce, someone who's appreciated. In Lenny's case, there was a movie made about him, so more people at least are familiar with him. Lord Buckley's day is yet to come, but his birthday has come today, and we're all here to celebrate it as we did last year. I had the joy of being with him the night before he passed away. Doc Humes and Emmy Humes, his daughter, who made a wonderful documentary film about Doc, where this was mentioned, and Oliver was in that film and spoke very beautifully as well. That was a event that we had to try to raise money for Lord Buckley, because of not having his cabaret card, he was not allowed to perform in New York City. And George Plimpton had this huge event to try to help people who were in television and the media and the publishing to become aware of this incredible, spontaneous American genius. And I had the joy of playing with him just that night before he died. And I was playing with Oscar Pettiford's band at the time. And Lord Buckley would come down to Birdland, and Oscar, since I was Oscar's employee as his French horn, would say, "I want you to come up and see my French horn players, Dave Shakespeare in the Park." And I said, "Oscar, I didn't write Shakespeare in the Park." I said, "Shakespeare wrote the words, I'm just the composer." He said, No, I said, "It's Dave Shakespeare in the Park." So the whole band, and most of the denizens of Birdland, would come up to Shakespeare in the Park on our night off. And of course, Lord Buckley was there because he loved jazz and Shakespeare. He loved the beauties of the European culture and the beauties of the New World culture, and thought that they were both equally great. And every single thing that he ever wrote, every single thing that he ever did, every transcription of anything that he's done is always on that beautiful, high, universal, extraordinary level. And eventually, his place will be where it should be. But in the meantime, he lived his life doing what he loved to do, and nobody stopped him from being as great as he was. And I hope at the very end of the evening that Professor Irwin Corey will also come up as he did last year. He's also one of our giants. And if you go on YouTube, you could actually see Lord Buckley on a show with Groucho Marx. Someone just sent me that on the internet, and it's extraordinary. So you can not only hear him on records and read the beautiful transcriptions of what he wrote, you could also have a chance to see Lord Buckley. I wrote a saxophone concerto called Ode to Lord Buckley, which now gets played all over the world by classical orchestras. And when I send the program notes, and I send a picture of Lord Buckley, and then I send some of the material that he wrote, people in the symphony world are totally blown away, because they would assume it was something like an ode to Lord Byron or something of that nature. Now, when you think about it, there's not that much difference between Lord Byron and Lord Buckley. He just had a little different approach. So we're going to play one that we always do, I guess, on these occasions, a little spontaneous ending of the first half, by someone that Lord Buckley loved. And when they wrote a wonderful book, the Rolling Stone Book of the Beast, and they interviewed me, and I was asked whether Lord Buckley and Jack Kerouac had any relationship. I said they happen to know each other and admire each other. And a tape turned up to prove that, where Lord Buckley speaks of how beautiful Kerouac's work is, and Jack, of course, appreciated Lord Buckley. We all did. So this is a little piece of Jack Kerouac's with a spontaneous intro and outro for all of you who came to celebrate a great person's birthday, for our dear Lord Buckley, a song that Jack wrote with Allen Ginsberg, Neil Cassidy, his road buddy, doing the lyrics, and myself doing the music, called Pull My Daisy. Well, here we are at the Bowery Poetry Club on a beautiful afternoon. And I guess the great creator, he or she up there in the sky, must know what they are doing. And if Lord Buckley's looking down right at all these folks here in New York town, I guess he'll say, we know what's going on today. It's in a special kind of way we're celebrating me. That's Lord Buckley's thing, not me personally, don't you know? And Lord Buckley would say that I want to thank all of you for coming to my birthday show. Now, since I'm not Lord Buckley, and he could have said it himself, perhaps I should put that I am me on the shelf, except to say that that's only what he would have said. And he's alive, he's not dead, because his spirit always lingers on. And that's kind of the spirit of this song. This also goes way, way back, but the lyrics of this were written by Jack and Neil Cassidy and Allen Ginsberg as well. And they also had a story to tell. Because like Lord Buckley, they loved and lived in the world of spontaneity. That gift that the great creator gives every one of us, every single he and she, because we're all born with that until we enter the adult world, and then it gets lost. Because that's the first thing that we're told in school by our teacher, who isn't then our boss, which says, get rid of that stuff and hit that book, and don't give me any kind of happy, cheerful look. You're going to do some work and suffer, don't you know? Because school is all about that. Otherwise, you're going to have to go. So the gifted children have to go elsewhere to find their education each and every day. Can help themselves by looking out the Lord Buckley way. Because in our Austro-Hungarian and British terminitis of desperately wanting, all of those things which come in every child's Christmas bounty, we seem to have some kind of crazed desire for a special kind of royalty. Well, we got it in the United States, and we don't have to go back to England, don't you know, see? We can still remain liberated from that, because we've got Count Basie and Duke Ellington as well. And we've got the great Lord Buckley, who's got so many stories that he can tell. And we even got Queen Latifah to help us out in case we have to settle on that type of scene. But we didn't need all of that, because we're supposed to be a democracy, don't you know what I mean? So with those First Amendment rights as we enter into the April nights, I just want to play something for all of you, and then the first half of the show will be through. So people who rhyme like this are usually taken away to St. Vincent's Hospital to be certifiably crazy. So before they haul my aging carcass off, I'll say that's the Lord Buckley introduction to Pull My Daisy. Pull my daisy, tip my cup. All my doors are open. Hop my heart's for coconuts. All my eggs are broken. Hop my heart, son, heart my light. Sorrow's hold me steady. Hit my angel, heart my light. Lay it on the needy. Hop my heart, son, heart my light. Sorrow's hold me steady. Hit my angel, heart my light. Lay it on the needy. Well, when Jack and Neil and Alan wrote that song with us way back in 1959, we never thought we'd be here at the Bowery Poetry Club this afternoon feeling so fine. Celebrating Lord Buckley's birthday today. It's something in a special way. We hope we can do it every year to bring on that ineffable Lord Buckley cheer. So we thank all of you for coming so much. You helped us out in the clutch. There's not too much more that I have got to say. We're going to hear Professor John DeWitt play. John DeWitt playing his bass. Customary Amazing Grace. That's what we did that night when we played for Lord Buckley. That was out of sight. And all the authors wanted to talk too much. And Lord Buckley said, well, if that's in a clutch, let's go down with Doc Hughes and hang out at my pad where I'm going to be. We'd be so glad, and we spent the night. The next day he was gone. But rather than feeling forlorn, we're going to play some 4 bars for you. We'll be happier when it's tip my cup. All my doors are open. Half my heart for coconuts. All my eggs are broken. Half my heart's a heart, my life. Sorrow's hope is steady. Hip, my angel heart, my life. Lay it on the needy. Half my heart's a heart, my life. Sorrow's hope is steady. Hip, my angel heart, my life. Lay, hey, used to scat sing. And even during the time of Lord Buckley, when he was brought up in a lumber camp way in rural California and working for Al Capone's places in the 1920s in Chicago didn't blow his scene at all. Because being educated by others, sisters and brothers, which is the way we all get our divine rise from the place that we're supposed to fall. Just like in the same time that he was doing that, Jack Kerouac, looking back, came from the mill town of Lowell, Massachusetts, and went to a fine pre-Ivy League boarding school. Because, like Lord Buckley, being a very healthy, athletic fellow himself, his father said, if you don't get that type of education, you're just going to remain an undereducated fool. So he went to Horace Mann, doing the best that he can, so he could get a scholarship to go to the great Columbia U. And during that time, he met the most fabulous William F. Buckley, no relation to the Lord Buckley, because he came from a different type of scene entirely, don't you know? And unfortunately, we don't have any great Williams material to do on the show. But old Lord Buckley had an English accent of sorts and was a real distinguished royalty himself. And Jack never put his old third-generation French-Canadian lumberjacket, black and red checked jacket on the shelf. But poor old William F. Buckley, he was the one that wasn't the Lord's father, came from Texas and said, you're not going to be part of the Nexus. If you talk like Texas, you're never going to get an American literary scene. So therefore he went to a fine school so that he could get rid of all his ethnic, own beautiful, poetic, magical Texas background, you know what I mean? And he sounded like a dropout from the school of old Vic Bad Acting. Whereas Lord Buckley, his imitation of the Lord was only soulful and more aristocratic. He wasn't acting. So finally, when Jack's book On the Road came out, fortunately, Orville Prescott, or Woodard Despised it, was on vacation, and they sent it to the third string critic, Gilbert Milstein, who gave it a fantastically good review. And we're still recovering with joy from all of that, even though Gilbert Milstein and that old review are now long gone and through. So for everyone celebrating Lord Buckley here this afternoon, and Jack and all of you as well, you know that in the year 2007, now's the time, as Charlie Parker said way back in 1945, so everybody's got their own story to tell. So whether you want to write, paint, play, sing, or get out your rototiller so you can till the window box of your imagination for this year 2007 spring, in the interests of Lord Buckley and Professor Irwin Corey's spontaneity, as we get to the intermission now, some of those beautiful cups of tea and pastries, let's all pull our daisy. Kevin Twig, and then John DeWitt, two great musicians who came with.
Tulips. There's some ignorant oil up at the bar. The commodes are where you find them, downstairs I do believe. Hang out for a little while. We're going to show some moving image Lord Buckley in just a little bit.